Hello, everyone. Welcome. So I am Ryan Herbst, Chief Strategist at UnifiedCommunications.com, and I'd like to welcome you to another of our special online events, this time focused on Microsoft Teams signature rooms. I am joined by fellow UC colleagues, Joseph Living from our engineering organization, Jake Fisher from our solutions and consulting group, and once again by Mr. Jimmy Vaughn, partner technical specialist and Teams aficionado at Microsoft. Jimmy, welcome back. Super excited to have you here as always to talk about something near and dear to all of our hearts, signature rooms.
Thanks, Ryan, for inviting me back. Yeah, signature rooms is something that really has overtaken everybody's sort of thought process when they're designing rooms and how they're actually looking at rooms and how they can enable teams inside of their shared spaces. We started with okay, we're just going to have meetings and we're going to take these meetings and we're going to put them inside of a room. And then as we started to look at things and over the pandemic, we started to think about, well, how can we have better meetings? How can we actually enable all of these meetings that we're in and just be a little bit more effective? So what you're going to see over this next few minutes that we're talking about these style of rooms is really the concept that Microsoft has looked and said, hey, what was good in the past? Let's use what's good in the past, but let's keep that good in the experience that we're using right now, but really make it in a much easier and budget friendly solution for all of those customers, and not only do it in the C suites. Remember, I said budget friendly because these rooms really used to cost a tremendous amount of money. But I think with what you guys at UC.com have really done and shown our customers is that this doesn't have to break the budget anymore. And not only do we have to have it in the C suites, we can actually experience this in many more size rooms because of the budget friendliness of what we're doing right now.
Couldn't agree more. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. There is a Q&A tab enabled. We are using two things today. We're using Teams Webinar, and so you'll see that Q&A tab. We will have some reserved time for questions and answers, so feel free to start entering questions at any point through that Q&A tab. We're also using a Azure-based service called AI Producer, which is designed to add some additional capabilities to both Teams meetings and Teams webinar. And you'll see some of that, some production elements, we're jazzing it up a bit. So we're kind of excited to be doing that today. And big thanks to the AI Producer team for helping with today's production. So Jimmy, we'll start by covering just the concept. I know you kind of spoke to it for a second. What are Teams signature rooms? Why is everybody so excited about them? I thought we'd start just with a quick video to kind of set the stage for the discussion.
We're using every aspect of the room to optimize the experience for this new hybrid model. You'll notice the unusual orientation of the room around one long screen. Instead of a rectangular conference table where attendees face each other, everyone is looking the same direction, toward the meeting content. As you can see, virtual participants are face-to-face with the people in the room. Camera placement ensures that the people in the room are looking at the remote employees. Faces on the screen are life-size and auto-adjust to maintain lifelike representation. The software is designed to make the hybrid experience more natural. You'll also notice that we're increasing the real estate for displaying content in the room. You can show information that couldn't fit before. At one glance, you can see presentations, action items, chats, and more. For participants at home, the view's better too. Isolated video streams from smart cameras in the room allow each in-room participant to be segmented, pinned, or spotlighted. They're seen as individuals with their own space, not lost in the crowd. How do you make virtual participants as real as possible in the room? Well, by making it natural for your brain to register their presence. Audio and visual innovations help with that, like spatial audio. In this room, if someone on the left side of the screen is speaking, the sound is coming from the left. It just feels more intuitive, less tiring. We've thought a lot about collaboration too. Using a whiteboard used to be a core part of in-person meetings. When you move to a digital whiteboard, it's actually a more inclusive experience. Everyone can jot down notes using any device. This Surface Hub 2S is the ideal digital canvas. It can serve as a digital whiteboard for people in the room, And remote attendees can also interact with it. You can be anywhere, drawing on your tablet, and what you're drawing at home shows up for everyone to see. What I've shown you today is just the beginning of the fundamentally new approach we're taking to meetings and collaboration. Our vision for hybrid meetings is to make location irrelevant, so that all participants feel fully connected, whether they're in the room or across the world.
Thank you, Jared. So no, I think great overview. Hopefully, a lot of folks, signature rooms have had a lot of buzz, and so I think a lot of folks have seen some of this concept, but some may not. And so I think today our hope is that if you're new to signature rooms, you're going to have a good sense. If you're familiar with the concept, we're going to go a lot deeper around ways you can customize this experience, fine tune this experience, and really make sure that you're taking full advantage of this concept that Microsoft has put together, and folks like Unified Communications are helping to deliver. So yeah, Jimmy, I know we know that signature rooms are highly optimized for an across the table experience, kind of a virtual across the table experience with remote participants. How and where are we seeing customers deploy these types of rooms outside of Microsoft? And then maybe what's Microsoft doing, internally with this concept?
Yeah, outside of Microsoft, it's really sort of grabbed people's attention. And it's grabbed people's attention because, as Jared said, you sort of feel like you're sitting across the table from your remote colleagues. Ryan, we talk about hybrid work. We talk about a reason to go back to the office. We're all outfitted very, very well at our home offices with technology, the mics, the speakers. We can be heard. We can be seen. All of that is there. We each have our own squares. Now, as we go back to the office has to be as equally enabled with the technology so that those people that are making the commute, it's worth it for them. If they don't have as good of an experience at the office as they do at their home, what's the commute for? Why are we actually going there? Now, what we want to do is really sort of look at the way that meeting's been going on. Back in previous days of video conferencing, there were large systems that were called immersive telepresence systems, and they commanded a huge price tag on their room systems, but they had good elements. We talked about, this is a video and audio conference, but there's so much more to that than there was in the past. It's not just video and audio. Now it's more about the collaboration that's there, the chat that's on the screen. Jared spoke about having real estate for raised hands, for the people at the gallery, the eye gaze to actually feel like we're making a connection. One of the reasons why remote and in person has a different feeling is because we've been meeting in person for thousands and thousands of years. But this idea of remote is brand new. So what we're trying to do is really take those elements of in-person meetings that are familiar to people and feel familiar and bring them to that remote side. So, we talk about signature rooms and we're going to talk about everything. But remember, this is not just an experience of the software on the screen. This is an experience of the furniture that's inside of the room. This is an experience of the technology that is put inside of the room. This is an experience of the remote participants actually feeling engaged inside of that conversation and that meeting itself. So we can't sort of look at one thing and say, oh, well, this is how it works. We're looking at partners like unifiedcommunications.com who take our guidance and say, okay, they go to the customer, how would you like these rooms? And we can satisfy small, medium, large rooms with this kind of meeting. Now, not every room may have all of this. You guys know better than most. When you go to a customer, there might be things like furniture that needs to sort of stay inside of the room. So we don't have that opportunity. So some of the rooms that we're going to look at and we're going to talk about, it's the opportunity to really look at everything as a whole and say, how do we really bring all of this in? And how do we have good meetings using this signature Microsoft Teams room style?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I think we know that it's all about a portfolio-based approach, right? We know that that these types of rooms, and in some cases, depending on which signature room, some of these are really, really they're fine-tuned for the perfect physics and the perfect kind of camera angle, for a team working with a remote, presenting to a customer or a remote team. There could be other rooms that may make more sense if we're really focused on a group that's predominantly in the room. We know we can do great things with Teams rooms. And so it's, signature rooms have a place in the portfolio. And I think that's part of our job collectively is, working with customers to help them appreciate how and where. You may need a handful of these on a given floor. You may need a handful of these in a given building. It really varies based on how your hybrid's set up, how you work, how your teams work. But I think we know that almost all customers need some element of this, and that no matter what, there's all kinds of fun stuff happening with multi-camera and virtually directed multi-camera. And we talk all the time about a lot of these fun concepts, but you're never going to get probably better than some of the physics that we can do if what we're trying to do is, Jimmy and I walk down and we're presenting to a customer, the two of us in the office to two or three folks on the remote side, having some rooms that are really just built for that. It's awesome. But yeah, it's not every room. It's a subset of the rooms.
And Ryan, one of the great things is when people experience these rooms, we've had shared customers that walk into one of these rooms that's properly equipped with everything. And they walk in and the executive says, I want this. And they're not talking about, I want this technology, I want this screen, I want this microphone, so on and so forth. They're talking about, I want this as an experience that I'm walking into the room. I think, if you took one thing out of InfoComm this year, it was really about creating that experience. You saw so many Microsoft Teams rooms around the show floor that were just talking about the experience, and the signature rooms that we're talking about today. You saw many partners who were outfitting and giving the ability for our customers to actually have these kind of meetings, so that the real estate on the screen is actually properly used, where you've got the gallery just at eye level. You've got the content in the center of the screen, and then you've got two remote areas of interest in the screen, in the upper right and upper left-hand side of the screen, that are called Loop components. And Microsoft Loop is a new way of working with Microsoft, but it's going to actually be inside of those shared spaces now as well, where we can actually update things as they're spoken about. Use AI to actually properly show people the chat, the agenda, the raised hands, whatever it is. We've got that real estate available, and that's really why people are looking at Microsoft Teams rooms and Microsoft Signature Spaces, is because that experience is unrivaled in the industry today.
No question. And hopefully everybody saw in Jared's video, you got a kind of full sense of what the front row layout, how it really shines in these signature rooms, and how it shines in a widescreen 21:9. We're going to go more into the details of that in just a moment. But there's something unique about, the front row layout, and the front row layout in signature rooms were kind of built to go together, right? Where we've got that additional real estate, you've got a lot of the out of meeting experience coming into the room. You've got, you've got kind of that perfect combination where folks in the room feel empowered with the information that they would have if they were outside of the room, and outside of the room, the physics, the technology, everything is aligned just to create such a powerful and engaging experience. So, team, let's roll up our sleeves a little bit. Let's dive into how an organization would go from love the video, excited about this concept, but if we really want to start planning and talking about specific rooms in a particular environment, this definitely starts with selecting the right space. What space sizes are available for a signature room? What are some of the considerations for the physical space? And I thought it'd be fun for us to maybe start with a review of Microsoft's internal design templates that they've put together around signature rooms. And so Jake thought a good opportunity for you to take us through some of the Microsoft archetypes and concepts. We can talk about it as a group. And we know that these are just good starting points. In some cases, they could be exactly what somebody's looking for, but Microsoft put a lot of work into this. It's definitely a good place to start.
Yeah, for sure, Ryan. We have a few of them to go through. Kind of going through, starting with the smaller and the simpler. With the focus room, we'll move on up. Focus, small, medium, large. Kind of go through those. So yeah, if we could share.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries. We'll give a little visual of it, show kind of the
layout. One second. Yeah, that was on me. And all right. So yeah, let's start with focus, and yeah, you can take us through it.
Yeah. So we'll start focus. Kind of start with the simple. Might be similar layout you already have in some of your focus rooms, but some elements to kind of call out here. One goes, you have a table bumped up against the wall, seating for 5. One thing we're using here is a wide-angle camera. In this case, this archetype uses the Jabra PanaCast 50. that has a camera array that gives you 180-degree field of view, so it can really capture everyone, no matter how close they're seated to the front of room. In this case, we'll show some of the 21 by 9 stuff we talked before, but for this focus room, at least this archetype, 16 by 9, but we're really going with maximizing the screen size here. So 65-inch screen, really large, still able to take advantage of even the front row experience on a single display. Other kind of cool thing with this, that Jabra Panicast has the ability to act as a content camera as well. So you'll notice the whiteboard on the side wall over there. So that can actually act as your content camera as well as capturing the people at the table. Or if you go with a different setup, we can still tie in here an actual content camera attached above the screen, some flexibility in how you kind of go about that. Still gives you that same the X-ray view of person standing in front of the whiteboard view, so really clear for everyone in the space. So
And
Yeah.
Jacob, if we look at this space, we really sort of see the blending of the furniture and the technology coming together. One of the big things inside of this focus room that you can see is that camera is actually mounted below the screen. A lot of times pre-pandemic, we used to see people and they would put the camera above the screen and you would get what we call that bowling alley view. And that bowling alley view doesn't really foster that sense of, hey, I'm meeting with you. If I'm sitting here and I'm talking like this, you really don't get the sense that I'm actually talking to you because I'm not actually looking at
Very
you.
different.
This comes
Yeah.
a little bit more like in person when I'm actually looking at the camera and I'm actually, I use my hands. There's that nonverbal communication. So when you feel like you're sitting across from your remote colleagues, it brings in that sense of participation and fosters inclusiveness inside of the meeting itself. Not only that, you can see that table is actually built to push up against the wall. Why? Space is very, very important inside of this focus room. It's probably a small space, like we said, about a 10 square meter solution inside of this room. But we've got these all over the place, and we can do different things inside of these rooms. But this was one that really, really felt natural to the whole team. Whether we were in person or whether we were remote, we had a really good experience with this space. And Ryan, when we talk about the Microsoft experience, we're talking about tens, if not hundreds of thousands of conference rooms across the globe that we're going to be outfitting with these type of rooms. So when we look at it, we don't look at the 10,000 or the 100,000 rooms. We look at 10 to 20 size rooms. And we say, all right, how are we going to roll this out as one of the largest organizations in the world? How do we actually deploy all of this technology? And we do it by coming up with standards. And I think that's an important part of what people should understand with unified communications is that you need to come up with standards. And that's why a partner like Unified Communications is really important to engage, because they can look at your organization and come up with those standards and bring those standards, just like we did at Microsoft, where this is a focus room that you can choose for that size room. And the technology, the furniture, even the whiteboard, like you said, Jacob, fosters everything inside of that meeting itself. And that's why, like I said, people are coming and saying, I want this room, not just because of the technology itself, but because of all the thought that went into this experience that we're actually in right now.
One of the things that I love about this concept, and Joe, I think we know from conversations, and some of the archetypes that we'll see, probably have some things that, particularly from a furniture perspective, probably aren't in that room today. And they make sense to invest in. But this focus room concept, there's a lot of folks that they're close to this. They might have the furniture already or something very similar to this. They just need to tweak the technology, take the guidance, and really create this signature concept. But it doesn't take a lot of investment and may not even take new furniture to do this particular focus room concept, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I love that Jimmy touched on is just how much the furniture has to play hand in hand with the technology. Because when we look at it from a holistic viewpoint, that is the best way to deliver the type of experience that we're really trying to hit home at with these signature rooms. You can see here how the table tapers out, and you have to ask yourself, well, why is that? One of the reasons is that if you really want to see faces as people are as close to the screen as they are, you need to make sure that they're not stacked on top of each other, because nothing is worse than having me sitting here trying to make my point and then the next person right in front of me is we're trying to speak if you're really trying to get a good experience. So these are the things that we always take into account as we're meeting with clients and discussing the way that the signature rooms can really help them deliver the experience to their end users that they're hoping to get.
Wonderful. All right, let's move on to our next concept, small. Jake, maybe take us through it.
Yeah. So yeah, bumping up to small size room. Some similar elements like we saw with the focus room, table bumped up against the front of the wall, a little bit more seating at the table, 6 seats there. A couple changes you'll probably notice. One, we've now changed from a 65-inch display, now expanding that to a projector with 21:9 display at the front, really taking advantage of the front row layout, face to face with folks you can see there. Same camera, mounted below the display, like Jimmy said. Again, using that Jabra Panicast 50. But notice taking more advantage of the space as well. Towards the back of the room, we have kind of the bistro cafe height table with stools in the back. With added a Surface Hub 2S 50-inch on a cart. Here, taking advantage of the coordinated meetings feature. So here we get the full advantage of the Teams room, the front row layout at the front, but then seating that's conducive to people to be able to stand up, go and use the Surface Hub in the space. Coordinated meetings lets both those devices join all at once together in a coordinated fashion. They're going to get best of both worlds. You get the full signature Teams room setup with the added option of adding digital whiteboarding in the space. You go two ways here as this element shows. Without Surface Hub, it also the option to add a whiteboard on the side. The Logitech Scribe shown capturing that as well. But really, if you want two-way whiteboarding, collaborative, Surface Hub is going to give you the full benefit of that, and this room layout really gives you that setup.
Yeah, I think key here, guys, is really to sort of look at it and say, this is the same size room as what we were just talking about in the focus room. This is not really that different of a size room. But what we were able to do is actually have more seating, because this type of room actually fosters a more collaborative session. So if you as Unified Communications go to a customer and they say, well, we use whiteboard a lot and we love whiteboard, this solution and this space, this technology that fits inside of this room might actually work much better for that organization. Why? Because it gives that extra seating where somebody who's going to do the collaboration side with the remote side can actually walk to that Surface Hub on a 50-inch display and actually start using that unified whiteboard experience. Not only that, everybody can now see it because it's actually shared inside of the room, and to the remote colleagues as well, who can actually now collaborate on that space. And to your point, Jacob, you're not only capturing those people that are angled inside of that table itself, but you're now capturing those people that are seated a little bit further away. Why? Because they're actually seated at a different height. So their faces, Joseph, like you were talking about, you're not blocked by the physical space. The technology can actually adapt to this room style and give you that. So again, we're sort of looking at things, intelligently thinking about things, and bringing them to a standards for your organizations through our partners at Unified Communications.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't mention too, nice benefit with this, the coordinated meetings feature with the Surface Hub. Surface Hub itself has a camera. Both of these are joining to this meeting at the same time. When configuring it, you can set it up so that the Surface Hub camera comes on at the same time. So, remote participants are not only getting that Panicast 50 camera capturing the people that are seated, but folks remotely also get a nice view of that camera built into the Surface Hub, capturing people when they're up using that device as well.
That's a great point. And I think, this is a really efficient use of a small space in terms of both capacity, built for engagement, but also being able to stand up and collaborate. It took some thought. I think again, this is where these concepts can really make some sense. As a starting point. We know, for example, we'll talk in a moment about the fact this doesn't have to be a projector, and this could be a 81-inch 21:9, or there's different things that we could be thinking about here. But these are great conversation starting points. Yeah, let's move to medium. And this one, this is a lot like what we saw in video. And I think a lot of times when a lot of us think about the original, I guess what a lot of the marketing around Signature Room has been around this space. But I think so important today that we're making it clear that Signature is not just this particular room, because I think that's the image that a lot of people conjure up. Signature is a whole range of space sizes that are that were built around this concept for engagement. This particular one being very much that type that is super fine tuned for for across the table engagement. But yeah, I guess thoughts, team. I think this was maybe the concept that started it all.
Yeah, I think what's different about this one that we didn't see in the previous video, or that some of the images, I guess maybe we did see a quick shot of this, but just to point out, we're looking at a space like this. You might have a traditional layout looking at rotating the room 90 degrees to get this set up. This one is incorporating a heckler stand that you notice there is close to the table in that space, giving you kind of an all-in-one stand that will hold the projector that's shown there, the compute module, and an arm holding up that Padcast 50 at eye level. So when you're thinking about that, rotating the room 90 degrees, and what are you going to do with that sidewall? Really, the only change that sidewall we had to do was adding the projector screen for the projector, and kind of all the other elements that require networking power and that sort of thing are on that nice stand that can be set in the curve of that table.
Yeah, one of the challenges that actually comes with a room like this, when you think about it, is all right. You remember that boardrooms used to really be that table where people sat across the table from each other. Well, now they're sitting and they're really angled towards that that gallery that sits at the bottom of the front row view at the front. Now, when you've got to talk to your colleagues in person, what's the right angle for this space to actually talk in person and get there? So we went through all of these challenges. We actually have a space inside of Redmond that we call the Hive, and that's our R&D development side. And that angle actually changed over time as we started to collect feedback from customers, our customers, our users at Microsoft. When we started to collect the feedback, it was like, okay, I have to turn too far to my left or right to acknowledge the people that are inside of the room. I'm seeing the people remotely perfect and they can see me perfect. But the challenge now comes when I have to actually turn to acknowledge those people in person. So our furniture partners that have worked with us on this furniture, we design things actually using cardboard as the research and design tool because it's much quicker to actually design those things. So as we give guidance, as we design these rooms, this is not, oh, we're taking this stock out and we're doing this. We're actually inventing a lot of these things for the first time with our manufacturing partners to go ahead and make sure that the technology works for the intended use of what we're doing. So like I said, this isn't something, oh, well, we're going to use off the shelf this, off the shelf that. We are creating this. And I saw in one of the questions, Ryan, one of the Q&As, do you have experience with 21:9 screens? Are they actually recommended? And we say, they can be for the space. If you've got room at the front of your room itself for a 21:9 screen, that added real estate can add a lot in the software presentation that Microsoft is actually providing you. Maybe dual screens is the right thing to go, but that's where we're looking and we're saying, let a partner like Unified Communications come out. Let's view the room. Let's make sure that we are giving you the right recommendations for your space itself. Don't just take our word for this. Let's go and let's make sure that we're actually designing it properly for your space itself.
I'm glad you mentioned the in-room kind of engagement in this concept, because I think the natural instinct when people look at this is to say, gosh, this looks great for virtual across the table, but this is not going to be great for the in-room participants. I do think on one hand, it's perfectly fine to say you want some traditional across the table rooms. We know that we've got Teams room solutions that will work really well there. They're getting even better when we add, center of table and multi-camera. It's going to make that more engaging. But I think people would be very, very surprised if you haven't sat in a room like this, because we all also sat on one side of a rectangular table and didn't complain about the fact that we talked to each other in that room. And that's by far worse than this. This actually is a lot better in person than you imagine. Doesn't mean that this should be every room. We know this takes an investment in furniture. There's some investments in, potentially, if it's net new, it's one thing. If you're retrofitting, there's some changes and some investment that you make here. They're minimal to your earlier point compared to what it used to take to create really highly optimized, engaging rooms in the past. But this is a much, much better experience than the four of us sitting on one side of a rectangular table trying to talk to each other, which, again, we didn't complain about in the past. Fun stuff. All right, let's let's move to our last archetype that we're going to talk through on the Microsoft side. This one is relatively new. So exciting to be able to talk through this, because when this concept launched, this one wasn't available, but there now is a large signature room. Jake, kind of take us through it, and then we'll discuss.
Yeah. So some similar concepts we saw with the last one, but now, expanding into this larger space. Notice a bit different table design here, more kind of a flared U shape. More seating space we saw in the last, obviously, 7 to 8 in the last room, now up to 12 in this space. To Ryan's point about being across the table from other folks, that a little more curved in, a little bit more face to face with other folks in the room, but still keeping everyone kind of flared out. The intelligent camera at the room, again, mounted eye level, able to capture all of the folks there. Here, a little bit different concepts, going with two 85-inch displays at the front of the room, and with going with ceiling mounted audio, really capturing this larger space. You see we have on the side wall over there a whiteboard, make sure we can capture this really large space where people move around. And to that point, another new element we didn't see in some of the other rooms, notice in the kind of top left corner up there by the door, a rear speaker tracking camera that can be put towards the rear of the room to be able to capture people that are towards the back of the room, someone who's overusing that whiteboard in the space. So yeah, a little bit different concept than what we saw before, a couple of new elements added in.
Yeah, and when you're
go ahead,
yeah, Ryan, when you're going to organizations, this is probably the one room that everybody wants to talk about. This is the one room that people say, "Oh, I have to Teams enable this room, and I want to look at Microsoft and how are they doing it." So this is really how we're doing these large spaces. This is what we're outfitting inside of these rooms. Not only are we outfitting these rooms, but we also see, because we've seen so many more meetings happening, we're outfitting those other rooms that, like we talked about, the small, the medium, and even the focus rooms. That's really where the growth is coming from. But we don't want to just limit the experience that we're talking about to these large signature spaces. And that's really where the conversations come into play. We can do these large rooms. We can help you have better meetings inside of these spaces. But we can also do the same experiences in those other rooms as well.
Agreed. And again, Jake, I know you mentioned this, but love the idea of a camera in the rear of the room. There is AI these days in cameras that can track a presenter. It will move with them. And so not uncommon in a room like this that there are scenarios that somebody comes to present in the front of the room or is at the whiteboard, and having that additional camera. We know Teams rooms allow us very easily to switch between multiple cameras. And this is just another USB camera. It's not super complex. I think that's the other side of this. In the old days, this took a lot of gear to put multiple cameras, and we had camera switchers and all kinds of integration. And this is not what we're talking about. This is still a very, very simple room concept here. There's no control system in this room, right? It has, we've got ceiling audio. We're going to move in a moment into some other, I guess, you see certain brands on these slides. This is not to say this is the only way to do these rooms. There's a whole ecosystem of folks. And, at a given moment in time, Microsoft may be doing something particular with a room standard, but there's a lot in this ecosystem. And I want to make sure it's clear that we're not saying, these are the only things you can do. We just want to start and show this example. And then we're going to kind of transition now to talk more broadly about the ecosystem, because we have such an opportunity to fine tune these based on this just very, very diverse set of hardware manufacturers that are making products that can work in signature rooms. So I think, again, the archetypes are helpful for inspiration, but now we can dive a little bit deeper and talk about potential hardware options that an organization could leverage. This is certainly where folks like Joe and Jake and I, the team at Unified Communications, where we can lean in and really help to help look at within a particular organization and within a particular portfolio, what is really the right hardware. But let's go a little bit deeper. So we started super high level. Now we kind of looked at the room size. Let's go into it kind of down into the weeds with the hardware a little bit, to talk about some of the hardware options that really bring some of this together. And so, I'll just start with a little kind of overview here. But from a base kit perspective, you could use a variety of different manufacturers that could be the core touch panel and rooms and the compute sitting inside our Teams room. In this scenario, it is true that you can use Android-based rooms for front row. These days, they don't support 21:9 yet, right? So they may not be appropriate for every room. And so in this instance, we're showing Windows-based kits, but there is an emerging story around Android as well. The camera side, super important, right? This is where we really want to leverage AI and cameras that are designed for the right field of view. And so you see some examples here with Panic S50, Logitech's Huddle and Mini, Poly E70. There are more, but these are some examples of cameras that could be used to outfit a signature room. On the rear camera side, there's multiple cameras. Some examples here from Aver and Yealink that have that presenter tracking AI that are certified for Teams rooms. We love, as we mentioned, this idea of having an interactive companion display so that we can roll up our sleeves, do some real work. We can engage Whiteboard and PowerPoint Live. Surface Hub is a great way to do this. If we can't do that everywhere, adding a content camera on top of a physical whiteboard. And we've got options from Huddly and Logitech and Yealink that could easily be used as that type of device. And then outside the room, we didn't mention, because we're talking a lot about signature inside the room, but the scheduling display, the Teams panel outside the room is becoming very, very important piece of the overall experience, getting the most value out of these rooms, releasing them if somebody doesn't show up on time. And we've got partners, Crestron and Logitech and Neat and Yealink, and I think Poly's just got certified, if I saw that correctly as well, for scheduling panel outside of the room. So we've got a lot of options. I'll stop and we can kind of talk through this a little bit, but this is really key. We got to get into the weeds at some point to figure out which of these are the right fit.
Yeah, and I think that's really sort of the guidance that Microsoft gives. Is we give the guidance, and then you, as a partner, Unified Communications, will put together the kit for the customer. But as you can see here, Microsoft has certified what's really the best in breed in conference room technology. These names are not unfamiliar to people that are doing conference rooms, and that's the idea. Is we want to make sure that we are working with the best, and the best will work with Microsoft. That's what certification is. Certification is not a rubber stamp that says, hey, Microsoft likes you and you can go do things. Certification is a difficult process, not only of laboratory tests, but also of actual usage. These devices are put into Microsoft rooms. Jake, as you were going through and you were saying things, yes, these are the guidance that we have right now, but we use every single manufacturer inside of our rooms. Why do we do that? This is one of the ways that we test. We get feedback from our users about the way that microphones sound, the way that speakers sound, the way that cameras actually track, and so on and so forth, so that we not only make sure that people, when they're on camera, they look like they do in person, and it's not sort of that fisheye view, but also that it tracks them correctly, that things are working correctly inside of the meeting. And not only does it work for today, Ryan, you spoke about AI. AI is doing so much and moving so fast that when we certify devices, we don't only make sure that it works for today, we make sure it actually works for the technology that's coming tomorrow as well.
Really good point. On the camera side, and one of the reasons that it's not just there's not a default decision on what to do. We really do want to have a discussion. There are some nuances. Microsoft is doing a lot of AI inside IntelliFrame, at the cloud level, but a lot of the devices at the edge, they have slightly different approaches to how they think about AI, and some organizations may feel much more connected with the way one particular manufacturer is doing it versus another. Field of view is important, although all of these have a fairly wide field of view. Some of these go 180 degrees, some of them are 120. All of these are things that we need to think about, right, Joe, from a design perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing is obviously one of the big parts of all of this is the video side of it, right? Like, you know, it's kind of hard to video conference if you don't have the video piece. So we always try and make sure that we're taking into account not just how close you are to the display, but how far are you from the display, right? And make sure that we're appropriately using, you know, we're using the appropriate camera, not just from a technology perspective on the AI side, but just holistically, even from when it comes to field of view, distance to the person that we're trying to capture as far as zoom and things like that. Aperture and lighting in the rooms are all super important as well, to make sure that you look as crisp and as good as you possibly can to the far end to really deliver that experience home.
I'm going to roll a little fast. I know I'm looking at time, realizing that that we have we got to get rolling for. I want to show a VR demo as well, but before that, just a couple of things. So we talked about 21:9 display, projector, 16:9. There's not a wrong or right answer here. There's a lot of options, and these range from, we're not showing the 16:9. I think a lot of folks have a good sense of 16:9. You can certainly do that, and it's appropriate. You see, even in Microsoft's large concept, dual display 16:9 with front row is the right choice for a lot of customers. A lot of them like that. Others want to do this with a big LED video wall, which we're doing, or they want to do it with a projector, or they want to do it with a 21:9 LCD, which, if there's another trend that we saw at InfoComm, Jimmy, was you couldn't walk by a booth without finding, last year it was really kind of novel looking at it at 21:9, and now it's everywhere, right? So there's a lot of opportunity and options here in terms of LCD, LED, projector screen. So just tons of great choices here.
Yeah, I think Microsoft has really sort of accelerated 21:9 views. And with people that are asking, is it worth it? Well, let's make sure that it is worth it to you, because for us at Microsoft, we do see value, and we have been pushing 21:9 screens. We have been showing 21:9 screens, and our partners in the display category have been responding and making and actually advancing their 21:9 screen categories to accommodate for customers that are saying, I want this. We started this by saying customers are coming in and saying, I want this. So is there value in that 21:9? Yes, we think so, because we can actually populate much of that real estate using the software with information that everybody's looking for. As we sit here, we're on a Teams meeting right now. I have everything that I'm used to inside of this screen right here. But what happens when I walk into a shared room and I'm looking for the chat? What happens when I walk into a room and I'm looking for raised hands? I shouldn't have to use my own personal device. All of that should be available to me on the display, and that's where 21:9 really comes into play, is that we've got the real estate now to actually populate all of that.
Couldn't agree more. On the furniture side, this is also an area that, as you said, this started with some cardboard cutouts, and initially Steelcase, which I know has been a great partner, produced the first of these tables. But like 21:9, these concepts around tables and the options that we have for furniture in the signature room. Another huge kind of trend we saw at InfoComm last week was just how many crescent shaped and other optimized for signature room tables are out there. The Prime View one was kind of interesting. You can you could angle that one on its own. It's kind of a scissor, so you could decide the angle. We've got we've got quite a few folks, Legrand doing tables, and Steelcase certainly continuing to, Ashton Bentley, Salamander making furniture. There's a whole bunch that we don't have here. I did want to point out that was really interesting, that Salamander, Epson, Credenza. And so we know we had the Heckler option, which is great. And we now also have an option from Salamander that puts an ultra widescreen projector right up against the wall, and has a place for a camera. And so just lots of great options. Joe previously mentioned just how big a part of the experience furniture needs to be a big part of the discussion, whether Unified Communications supplies it, whether we provide some direction around it. Furniture is a huge piece of signature rooms. And lastly, there's just some other considerations, and these are parts, we'll certainly want to just share this in terms of guidance, but as part of a normal design, we'd be talking about lighting. We want to make sure, from an overhead lighting perspective, we're distributing light evenly in a room like this. We're not shooting light directly at our display and creating a reflective surface. or creating a glare. Windows, walls. From an audio perspective, we generally want to carpet a room like this versus having a concrete floor. And so, these are some of the nuances that we also want to make sure that the room itself supports this engaging experience that we're trying to create using the technology and the furniture. So with that, let's jump into a virtual reality world. Jake, take us through some signature rooms. And yeah, maybe I think we've got about 8 minutes or 7 minutes.
Okay, I will. I'll try and get through these quickly so we can show you. Yeah. First of all, yeah, just as Ryan mentioned, using some software called Modus VR. I took those concepts that we went through, the archetypes, and built those out so you can see those here. So yeah, starting again, focus room. To make sure you don't get sick, I'm giving you a kind of a drone view. You won't have to watch my headset bob around as I go through this. But I want to show kind of some of the tools, and you can kind of see like what it looks like, seated at some of these spaces. So let me real quick. I'm gonna switch to put my my headset on here. And you might be able to see me over in the corner. You see my kind of tools as I go through this. So some of the tools that we have that are available with this, we build out the room, can show the displays. We've built in the hardware, so you can see like there at the front of the room. We can see that jumper Panicast capturing the space. We have some assistants that are nice as well. That give us some things like we can look at, pop their heads up, and we can see, what the screen elevation is, where they're looking, kind of aimed at right where our front row layout and the participants would be, kind of what their viewing angle is, shows us, good. Everyone gets a nice clear picture of that. And with all these rooms, we also get a view of, you see little green eyes above everyone's head, letting us know there is nothing obstructing their view. They have a nice clear view of that space. As well, one thing that's kind of nice here is if I select that camera, I can switch this and I can change it to, and we actually get a nice view of that, of where the what that view is, what it's capturing. Obviously, the camera will also be able to do its AI piece here, and we'll be able to do the segmentation and seeing it, but we get a nice view of what the angle is, how it's able to capture everyone. And nice thing about this too is I have the ability to, as we go through this and design this, switch through, the ability to, we find that that's a little too high or a little too low. We want to bring it up, find optimal and adjust that as we go through these. So we can get through
some
quickly.
Pretty advanced tools, I think, to help bring customers into this design process and to get a real feel for what this experience is going to look like. Certainly, it's great. We love folks to centers, but with this technology, we can really try to model what a customer specific world is going to feel like once we technology into the room.
Yeah, exactly. I switched to the small room here as well. So let me bring up some displays here. We can show this a little bit clearer. And I can kind of pilot this for you a little bit. Look around. So here we see that the same kind of concept that we were looking at before. The small room with auxiliary seating in the back, nice bistro height table here where we can see what's going on. I get it. It's close to the design of the table that we can get there. And again, one thing I want to show, we can show the the heads of everyone's nice clear view, including the folks seated over here to the side. They're able to get a nice clear view, a higher up view of the space, able to go over and use the Surface Hub as we go through. And I want to show as well, kind of show what that example is. So fly a little drone over here to one of the seated positions. So showing the nice clear angle of the space. Then we jump across the table. That's the person seated closest to the screen. Still nice clear view of that 21:9 display. And similarly, as we kind of jump back, view from the folks here standing using the Surface Hub in the space. Still, nice use of the layout with our bistro height table as you see right here. And let me jump to the next one.
Just teleporting around. This is fun.
Yep. I was jump across the hallway, medium signature room. I try to get these color coded the same way that the designs were as well. So hopefully it looks all familiar to what you're looking at before. Let me bring up some elements here. Actually kind of see some live things going on. So we'll put some people at the front. We don't unfortunately have the 2109 video to loop in here, but we'll with front row we'll put a Microsoft
looks like our
image over there on the Surface Hub on the side.
Something pretty close to that salamander short throw projector.
Yes.
Mount.
Yeah. You'll see. I got approximation. I didn't have the arm, but at least put a cabinet that gives you that kind of example.
Yeah.
Nice thing with this table, you have equal screen distance for everyone here. Obviously, clear view, clear shot for everyone at L. And then I can kind of fly around the room in this one as well. Give you a little shot of kind of what that looks like in the space. So kind of center of table, nice clear shot. Cameras out. Hop over to another spot at the table. You can kind of see there, kind of what Ryan was talking about. Still left here just a little bit, able to clearly see and communicate with the people in the room that you're with as well. And then similarly, we hop over, even when you're way over here, over using the Surface Hub. Clear view of the space, easy to use, and nice thing with Surface Hub here. If I move up, camera angle there that's designed to capture people in the space. Quickly, while we're looking at here, I select that the Jabra Panicast. I'll show you the camera view. We'll switch that real quickly. Again, just showing that off of, we have this really wide table, but with that the 180-degree field of view on the camera, able to capture the whole room, even where it's positioned, really close to the folks, within the curve of that table. And one last one I want to jump to. I want to show you the large room. The hall again. And then I'll take off the camera view there. So again, you should look familiar. Again, color coded, but showing off that that kind of I didn't have that exact kind of flared U shape, but go as close as we can, kind of a wishbone shape a little bit. Showing that example of the space, rear view camera in elements for you, so you can see at least some people at the front of the room up on screen, and then over on the side screen over here, we'll put up a little presentation to show what that looks like. And then just wanted to jump around to some of the room. We're just going to go to the center of the table. Actually, I will in front of you, right there. A view from the table there. Those nice large 85-inch displays at the front, dual, nice and clear. Closer, kind of show what that element looks like across the table, kind of give you that view. And then, oops, accidentally moved that camera. I'll give you that camera view in this one as well. This one, instead of the Panicast we were shown before, this one's actually using the HP Poly E70 camera. They're again capturing the whole space. You can see the people over towards the back of the room. But again, a nice one about this room is I can also select that rear camera. Although this one isn't tracking anyone right now as we do this, it does give you kind of an example of how that can capture people to get up to go to use the whiteboard.
Yeah, that would zoom in real close on someone.
Go to use it.
Yeah, that would zoom in at Jake. Thank you. I'm gonna. We have just a couple minutes, and so I want to just real quickly give a demonstration of our meeting room configurator tool. I wanted to do this because this tool specifically can help both customize a signature room concept. It also can help you create and manage standards. And so we'll make sure that we include in our post-webinar follow-up, in addition to links to video and other content and things that we've talked about, a link to this meeting room configurator tool. But I'm just going to show you a quick example that if I was going through and I'm looking here at sizing and capacity based on Microsoft's designs and standards. And so if I want to create a medium room and I'm going to take a signature room, I'm able to make some choices. Do I want to do a projector, an ultra short throw projector? Or do I want to do something like, in this case, I'm going to pick a 21:9 display, and I could decide if I want to put an 85-inch Surface Hub and a scheduling panel. And I'm able to share if there's some specific requirements that I'm driving for in this room. I can share that with the Unified Communications team. Engagement is my goal, and I'm able to create and then customize. This is also based, this particular example is based on Microsoft standards. So some of the things are included, other things I can change, like Surface Hub. I could select, can move from the 85 to the 50 and select particular accessories if I wanted to. Decide if we wanted the scheduling panel. I could make changes, and there's very comprehensive bill of materials, here that to make sure that what I'm getting is everything I need to make this room work. We could decide if we want to add a content camera, and then there's a lot of additional just included equipment and cables and accessories, again, to make sure you're not heading out to the store to go create this room. You got everything you need. We don't have time to go through kind of full demo of MRC. We've done this, and we'll do more in terms of showing this tool and some of its capabilities, but I am able to save these designs. So this could be Jimmy's medium hybrid. And from there, I'm able to create projects and locations and have an ability to both manage these standards. I can assign rooms and room names, and both purchase these standards and, again, associate them with projects and keep track of them. So maybe the fastest MRC demo we've ever done, but hopefully it gives those on the attending the webinar a sense of some of the power and some of the unique tooling that we have here at Unified Communications to help both fine-tune these concepts, manage these concepts, purchase and deploy them. So we're right at time. I know that we had a question, but I think, Jimmy, you kind of took this question. It was from John, and it related to if we'd actually experienced 21:9 screens and if we recommended them here. And I think that answer overwhelmingly is yes. We have them here in our envisioning center. We're deploying them. We're not saying they're appropriate for every space, but we're saying they can add some really unique value and should be probably a part of your portfolio and definitely part of an ongoing kind of discussion as we fine tune to try to make sure that we're getting culturally and the right technology, the right fit, for a particular customer's environment. So yeah, I think with that, we are at time. I wanted to thank Jimmy. Thank you, as always. We do quite a few of these. We always appreciate your wisdom and guidance, and it's always a lot of fun having you. For all of those that are watching either live or watching a recording of this webinar, the team here at Unified Communications would love to continue this discussion. This is what we do. We're super passionate about it. We're offering anyone who is attending a complimentary Teams signature room design session. So meet with one of our strategists and designers, and let's talk more about this concept. And we'll help you kind of get further down the road in terms of fine tuning what signature rooms could look like in your world. Please be on the lookout for an offer for that strategy session in our post-webinar follow-up. That again will have links to the recording. Please share that with anyone who wasn't able to attend that you think could benefit from that. With that, as always, Jimmy, you're probably always looking at, man, at Unified Communications, they're always really ambitious. Like we packed a lot into this one.
Yeah, we did. And, I just saw another question come in about a list of 21:9 screens and projectors you recommend. I think that we showed that during the event. There's so many choices out there, and you really should engage a partner, especially unifiedcommunications.com, to go ahead and help you find the solution that's right for you. We can say this works for Microsoft. It might not work for everybody. So having partners like Unified Communications is a really important part of your journey to Teams enable your spaces and to get to those Microsoft signature Teams rooms.
Yeah, Taylor, thank you for that question. We will publish the deck that has some of those manufacturers, but as Jimmy said, there's nuances. And I think that's where folks like us who live in this world, who are neck deep in it, are happy to provide some analysis on what may be, what are some of the specific strengths of a particular manufacturer versus something else. And so love it. Thanks again for the question. And with that, I'd like to, again, thank everybody for joining. Thank you, Unified Communications team. Thank you, Jimmy. And we will call this one a wrap.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.